My name's Angelo, and welcome to We Want Picks. The UFC Columbus weigh-ins are over. Everybody made weight, no issues. Nobody looked like trash. Everything was perfect. So weigh-ins are not a factor for this weekend's fights. I'm going to break down the entire UFC Columbus DraftKings card. We're going to talk about who I think wins, who's worth the money, who's not worth the money, and who you should have in your lineup. I did this breakdown earlier in the week, but we always do a final breakdown to account for any card changes and the weigh-ins. Weigh-ins are not a factor, but we do have a card change. We finally have Tulinian and Khizriev added to the card, so we're going to break that fight down. Before I jump into this breakdown, go to WeWantPicks.com/DraftKings. Sign up for our free DraftKings League. It costs you nothing to join, nothing to participate. And if you win the league and you're a member of this channel, we send you $50. So become a member by clicking the join button under the video. Join the free league. Have some fun. Let's jump into the breakdown. Then we have an interesting situation here with Khizriev versus Tulinian. Khizriev has a Contender Series win, but Contender Series doesn't show up in DraftKings. And Tulinian, full-blown UFC debut. So I have nothing to show you on the screen here, but we're going to talk about that fight. It is straight up grappler versus striker. Khizriev is a nasty grappler. He can do whatever he wants, take you down, beat you up, work from there. Tulinian's a pretty good striker. He's got power in his hands, but giant grappling holes. He can be taken down. He can be ridden out. This is a very clear fight. Khizriev is a -500 favorite on the sports books. $9,300 in DraftKings. He's absolutely worth that because this is so straightforward, it's out of control. He can get the takedown, submit, get the takedown, knockout. He could even hang in the striking department. Tulinian's definitely going to have way more power, but Khizriev can strike as well. So clear pick for Khizriev. He should be in your lineup. I know he'll be in mine, especially on a card where I don't love some of these giant favorites. So I'm loving Khizriev here. Tulinian always live for a Hail Mary knockout, but this is a short notice fight for him. He's stepping in. He's not necessarily, he wouldn't have necessarily been signed to the UFC otherwise. So easy pick. Khizriev in my lineup, should be in yours. So opening up in this card, we have Bruno Souza, and he's taking on Luis Saldana. Luis Saldana is a versatile striker, both offensively and defensively. He likes to fight outside, but his ability to move out of the way and then still come in and land strikes is pretty impressive. He's a pretty talented guy. He's taking on Bruno Souza. Bruno Souza is like a Lyoto Machida defensive karate guy. But if you look at Luis Saldana, they have him priced at $8,300. That was his price in his last fight. And it's a pretty evenly matched fight. Luis Saldana does have some wrestling gaps. I don't think that will be a problem. But he doesn't really score that well because you know how DraftKings goes. To score well, you need finishes and you need like control or takedowns. Luis Saldana's probably not going to get either one of those things. $8,300, probably not worth it. Let's look at Bruno Souza. He's a little cheaper, $7,900. He's only got the one fight in the UFC. That was his UFC debut, but he had like no offense. Like, 46 significant strikes. That actually is a higher number than if you were watching the fight, meaning if you had to guess watching that fight, you would have assumed he landed 10. He lost that fight because he didn't have the volume, but his defense is solid. The problem is, even if he won this fight, he would have scored 50 points. That's just not enough. Neither one of these guys are going to be in my lineup. I do think Luis Saldana wins that fight, but I'm not comfortable enough spending any kind of money on those guys. That takes us to a couple of fun strikers. We've got David Devorak taking on Matheus Nicolau. David Devorak, he's a striker. He likes to come forward with solid pressure, solid activity. He has really nice low kicks, and he pairs that well with some boxing. He's fundamentally sound. He's very good overall. He's got no real takedowns or wrestling or anything like that. But he's $8,400. This is another fight that DraftKings thinks is pretty close. I'm on the other side. I like Matheus Nicolau to win this fight. Nicolau, good, clean striker. He's technical, but he doesn't very look comfortable striking. So he's doing what he's supposed to do. He's following the rules of striking. He's technical, but he's never just fully letting himself go. But he does have solid takedowns. He is a good grappler. I think they're somewhat evenly matched on their feet. Matheus Nicolau is the better striker, so I got to go with Nicolau here. But let's look at Devorak, $8,400. He scored well in the win against Ronderos because he did have that submission, but, again, he didn't get the takedown, so it was really his scramble and his jiu-jitsu abilities took over there, and that's how he scored those points. If we take a look at Nicolau, I think, is the better grappler, and he definitely has the wrestling. I mean, he had 2 takedowns against Manel Kopp, 3 against Smolka. He had a takedown against Elliott. And that's Tim Elliott, a beast, the savage, just a dirty, get in your face, make it ugly. And he won that fight. So I like Nicolau to win. $7,800, I will probably spend that, because if I spend $7,800 and I get 77 points out of him, I'm happy with that. So I like Nicolau. I think he's a good play at $7,700. And the DraftKings fight order seems a little different than the actual fight card order, but let's go ahead and do it anyway. They've got Manna Ferreau versus Jennifer Maia next. Manna Ferreau, nasty striker. She's got very good power for her size. She's very well-rounded. She doesn't necessarily have the best grappling, but she does work in takedowns. You see that here. She took down Barbarena Silva twice. She took down her other opponents one time each. And if she gets taken down, she has the ability to stand back up, but she's primarily a striker, and she scores really well because, knockout. She has this decision win against Barbarena Silva in 88 points, which is solid. 88 points is solid, especially at $8,900, but she's $9,400. That's a lot of money, because let's look at her opponent. She's fighting Jennifer Maia. Jennifer Maia is a very good grappler. She's got underrated boxing. She's good everywhere, right? She's good everywhere. The problem is she's not amazing anywhere. So I do think Manna Ferreau wins this fight, but let's take a look. She is tough as hell. She's tough as hell. I think this fight is very similar to the Katlyn Chookagian fight, where Katlyn Chookagian was just one step ahead of her the entire time, controlling the striking, controlling the range, piecing her up. I know Manna Ferreau has stupid power, but I don't think she knocks out a very durable Jennifer Maia. So with that being said, Jennifer Maia loses. I'm not spending the $6,800 on her. Manna Ferreau will win, and I'm positive she'll win, but $9,400, you really need a stoppage. And I don't think she's going to get a stoppage because Jennifer Maia is tough. So I probably don't have Manna Ferreau in my lineup. But, depending on how it goes, it's tricky because she's definitely going to win. She might get some takedowns. She's definitely not going to get a knockout. So she's like right there if she's worth $9,400 or not. So you guys do what you want to do with that. But, it's always tricky when you're positive somebody will win. You just don't think they'll score incredibly high. And then we've got Dana Bagarai. He's taking on Chris Gutierrez. Dana Bagarai, he's a very good striker. He comes forward with volume. He's fast as hell. He has legit power in his hands. He's got a nice striking differential. And look at all these knockouts. The problem is he is I don't want to say first-rounder bust, but he's basically a first-rounder bust kind of guy. He's losing, when he gets to decisions, he's not winning those fights. He does tend to slow down. But look how incredibly dangerous he is in the first round. Look at this. 109 points, 128 points, 107 points. And he's just knocking these people out because he's so fast and he hits so hard. And he is only $8,500 for a guy whose last 3 fights ended in the first round. $8,500 is an amazing price point. I actually am on the other side of this fight. I actually like Chris Gutierrez, because Chris Gutierrez is also a very good striker. He's a very good kickboxer, has really good low kicks, has solid cage control. He can work in takedowns when he needs to, and he's very durable. He's got a very, very, very good chin. So I actually think Dana Bagarai has an amazing first round, then he slows down and Chris Gutierrez takes over. With that being said, both of these guys are well priced, because Chris Gutierrez at $7,700, if he weathers that early storm, he can do really well. Look, 75 points, 75 points. A finish with 114. He could potentially get a finish here because he could legitimately, wear down Dana Bagarai and then get a, ground and pound finish later in the fight. And this 65, I wouldn't be too happy with that, actually. But anyway, I like Chris Gutierrez, but guys, whoever you think wins this fight, honestly, Dana Bagarai, 3 first-round knockouts at $8,500, you really can't go wrong with that. So if you agree with me, have Chris Gutierrez. If you don't, I'm not going to argue. Dana Bagarai is stupid dangerous, and you might as well have that guy in your lineup. Then we've got Olympic silver medalist Sarah Mcmahon taking on Carol Rosa, Olympic silver medalist wrestler. That's her game plan. She does have technical striking. Like, she obviously trains her striking. She does what she's supposed to do, but she never really looks comfortable. She's never trying to strike. And if you look at her wins and losses, she either dominates with the grappling or she loses by submission. It's that simple. She can win by submission as well, but when she loses, it's because, she loses some of those scrambles on the ground and ends up getting submitted. Juliana Pena, 3 takedowns, 7 minutes of control time. She was dominating that fight, ended up getting submitted. And keep in mind, she's the champion right now. This is the champion. She was dominating the champion, then got reversed and submitted. She destroyed Landsberg, 3 takedowns, 13 minutes of control time, put up 90 points. She lost to Marion Renault. She lost to Ketlin Vieira, but she beat Mazzani, Davis, lost to Nunes, champ. Lost to Miesha Tate, champ. Beat Murphy, lost to Ronda Rousey, champ. My point is she's destroying everybody who is not a champion or can be a champion. I mean, Ketlin Vieira, nasty. Marion Renault, ridiculous experience. So anyway, do you think Sarah McMahon gets submitted? Well, let's look at her opponent, because the only way she loses is submission. Carol Rosa is a striker, a busy striker at that. She can work in takedowns, but those are off the table with Sarah McMahon. She's not going to go try to offensively wrestle the Olympic silver medalist. She probably should, honestly, but she's not going to. So let's go ahead and take the takedowns off the plate. So that leaves, look at this, 89 points in her win against Betch Correia, who she retired. She had 125 significant strikes. She's got legit volume on her feet, but she doesn't have stoppage power. And although she can grapple and has grappling, I don't think she's going to submit Sarah McMahon. So I am on the opposite side of this. I like Sarah McMahon, especially at that price point. I think she gets a bunch of takedowns, a bunch of control time, and rides herself to a decision. She is over 40 years old, but all she just has to do what she's done her entire life, which is wrestle and control. So I like Sarah McMahon to win. I know a lot of you are very high on Carol Rosa and how good she is and her abilities and what she can do. So, if you like Carol Rosa, go for it. But the only way she beats Sarah McMahon is by stoppage. She does not have knockout power. She just straight up doesn't. So then it comes down to the grappling and the submissions. If you think she could submit Sarah McMahon, then grab her. If not, I like Sarah McMahon, so I'm not going to do that. But interesting fight for sure. Then we have Neil Magne versus Max Griffin. Neil Magne, he's a very well-rounded guy. He's usually overlooked. A lot of people don't give him the credit he deserves, but look at this recent run. The only loss is to Chiesa, which was a 5-round fight. I mean, and that's in his last 5. 1 loss is to Michael Chiesa. He's a very well-rounded guy. If I had to put him in a bucket, I would say that he's a striker, but he does have takedowns as well. 2 against Jeff Neal, he dominated that fight. 4 against Robbie Lawler, dominated that fight. So I think Neil Magny's a very good, well-rounded guy. He is fighting Max Griffin. Let's take a look at Max Griffin. Max Griffin's a striker. We always joke about how when he fought Ramiz Brahimaj, Ramiz's ear came off of his head. And we talk about that quite a bit. But, Max Griffin, he's a good striker. He's got legit power in his hands. And I think he's more dangerous. He does have takedowns, but I would say Neil Magny's probably the better grappler. I like Neil Magne to win, but I think it's just, $8,800. I think it's a bit wide here because let's look, it's probably something like this, like the Jeff Neal win, 72 points. If I'm spending almost $9,000, is 72 points worth it? 63 points against Martin. And keep in mind, this was, this was a good fight. And Max Griffin's a little more dangerous than Jeff Neal is. So I don't think I'll have either one of these guys in my lineup. I do think Neil Magne wins, but that's just a lot of money to spend because I think it's actually a pretty close fight. And Max Griffin's definitely dangerous. Then we've got 2 awesome strikers. We've got Mark Diakiese taking on Vladislav Borshev. Borshev is coming off this awesome body shot TKO over Dakota Bush. Awesome. And he scored a ton of points, obviously, because he did that early, and he just blasted Dakota Bush. Borshev is a nasty kickboxer. He's actually the striking coach at Team Alpha Male, so he's getting in good wrestling looks as well. And he is fighting Mark Diakiese. Mark Diakiese, he's also a very good kickboxer. He's coming off a submission loss here to Alves. And if you look, it was a pretty long layoff there, over a year layoff between the loss to Fiziev, who we now know is nasty, and then his last loss in his comeback. But there might have been some cobwebs he had to shake off there, but he's a dangerous guy. He's got some power. He sets legs kicks up really well. He works the body, so he'll invest early. He'll work the body, he'll work the legs, for hopefully a payoff later. And he does have power, and he's typically pretty durable guy. A submission, that is what it is. Everybody gets caught. $7,500. He does have power, but Borshev, $8,700. He most likely gets a stoppage. I like Borshchev. He will be in my lineup, especially when he's just so live for a stoppage. Then we've got a 45-year-old Alexei Oleinik taking on Ilir Latifi, a battle of the heavyweight grapplers. Ilir Latifi was a light heavyweight. He moved up to heavyweight. His first heavyweight fight was Derek Lewis. He did not get knocked out. You see the L, he lost, but he did not get knocked out. But he also had 3 takedowns. Wow, good for him. He took down Derek Lewis 3 times. That's awesome. Couldn't hold him down and only landed 5 significant strikes. 5 in a 15-minute fight. He's so low volume, it's crazy. He did just come off the win over Tanner Boser. 10 significant strikes in another 3-round fight. 10. He's just so low volume. And significant strikes are strikes that could do damage, right? So when he's fighting a 45-year-old man, you want to see higher significant strikes because the way you're going to beat Alexei Oleinik is you're going to knock him out. He's 45 years old. But when you're only throwing 5 or 10 significant strikes in 15 minutes, is that enough to knock him out? I don't think so. I actually call me crazy for thinking a 45-year-old man's going to win, but Alexei Oleinik is nasty on the ground. Nasty on the ground. You take him to the ground, you're in for some trouble. He lost to Spivak. That's his last loss. He was in mount all 3 rounds, pounding away, almost beating Spivak, who's giant for the weight class, a pretty good striker, and a very good grappler himself. And he was almost winning that fight. Ilir Latifi's gonna take down Alexei Oleinik. That's where Alexei wants to be. I like Alexei to win this fight. $7,600. The problem is you are chasing a submission. I don't necessarily see him winning a decision, but even if he does, I mean, look at this one against Verdum. Lots of control time. He is very busy on top. Very busy striker when he's striking, and he should be able to get some takedowns. So I like Alexei Oleinik. If he gets some offensive takedowns, great. If he doesn't, he will be taken down, can reverse from there, can make something happen from there. Because Spivak, he only took Spivak down 1 time, but he still ended up on mount way more than that 1 time. So I like Alexei Oleinik, $7,600. If you think he's going to get the submission, go for it. 0% chance I spend $8,600 on Latifi because he's just not volume enough and have enough power in his hands that I think he'll stop Oleinik. So I'm not going to spend that money on a wrestler who's taking down a guy that could submit anybody, even though Ilir's never been submitted. Then we have fight of the night. Guaranteed fight of the night. We've got Askar Askarov taking on Kai Kara-France. Askar Askarov, he's a beast. He can wrestle like a Dagestani. He can strike as well. He can grapple on the ground. He's busy everywhere, and he's got a chin. Go watch his fight against Brandon Moreno. He was just drilled in the mouth with a knee that would have put a lot of people out, and he was rocked for sure, but he just immediately transitioned to the wrestling, and that was his UFC debut. Transitioned to the wrestling. That ended up being a split draw, but he 49 points in a split draw. Add 30 to that if you think he won. All of a sudden, he scored 80 points in his UFC debut against the eventual champion of that weight class. So I like Askar Askarov a lot. 5 takedowns against Benavidez, 2 against Pantoja. He got 3 against Moreno. He puts up some legitimate numbers, and he's good everywhere. He's taken on Kai Kara-France, who's a very good striker. He just absolutely starched Cody Garbrandt. And before that, he beat Bontorin. He knocked him out as well. And people are giving him, this is going to be hard to say, he deserves credit. Kai Kara-France is a very good fighter. But people are looking at that Garbrandt win, and yes, he beat Bontorin before that, and just seeing him as like future champion. He's not future champion. He has a good amount of losses on his record, 9 to be exact. He lost to Moreno. He lost to Royval. Those were tough fights, and those are very good opponents, and he's beating the other guys. But the reality is, I think Askar Askarov is just the next level. I think his wrestling is too good. His striking can hang. Probably shouldn't, but his striking can hang, and he's the better grappler. I like Askarov to win. $9,100. I will probably spend that because I think he's pretty much a guarantee to win this fight, and he could potentially get a stoppage there, submission, make something happen on the ground. Then we got Matt Brown and Brian Barbarena. Again, the fight order in DraftKings is different than the actual fight card order, but we're doing DraftKings. Matt Brown, Brian Barbarena, this is a really fun fight. It means absolutely nothing for the division. Neither one of these guys are ranked. Neither one are working for a title shot here. It's just a really fun fight for the fans. Matt Brown comes forward, throws bombs. He can work in takedowns as well. He's a very well-rounded guy. He just knocked out Diego, not Douglas. Douglas is his brother. Diego Lima cold. Matt Brown showcasing the power, the pressure, his toughness. I mean, this was like a nice revitalization fight for him. A lot of people thought he was going to lose that fight and then be out of the UFC. I picked him to win that, and he looked fantastic in that fight. He's fighting Brian Barbarena, who's a give one or get one to give one style striker. He'll get hit in the face, move forward, and then just hit you in the face. I mean, his nickname's Bam Bam, and that's how he fights. Bam Bam. So he just comes forward. Pretty good. He's not the most technical guy, but his volume is very good. His pressure is very good. 169 significant strikes against Luque in a 3-round fight that did not see the judges' scorecard is crazy. He is pretty durable typically, but his chin is starting to go, as we've seen here the last few years, because of the wars that he has been in. But so has Matt Brown. So we got two guys that are going to go at it, strike it out, swing it out. I like Brian Barbarena to win, but pick your side. This is a straight-up pick 'em as far as DraftKings is concerned. And if you want to put one of these guys in your lineup, I do think it's a decision. And I think it's a somewhat well-scored decision because the volume is going to be crazy. So if I got Brian Barbarena $8,000 and he scored me 80 points, I'm not pissed. 81 points, I'm not mad at that. So if you like Brian Barbarena, great. Matt Brown, great. They're basically the same price, and they will absolutely go at it. Then we got Alexa Grasso and Joanne Wood. This is another female fight where I'm going with the underdog. But Alexa Grasso, she's a fun striker. She's got impressive volume as well. She doesn't necessarily have that knockout power. She does have takedown defense. It's only listed at 60%, but her takedown defense is much better than that 60% it's listed at, because even Carla Esparza, who did beat her, who's probably the best wrestler in the division, or at least top 2 or 3, she went 4 for 11. So she did take down Alexa Grasso 4 times, but she missed 7, and she's a dominant wrestler. Alexa Grasso is coming up in weight. She's moved up to 125. She has had success here. She beat Macy Barber, which is a solid win, but she's a little undersized. And again, good striker, solid volume, always busy, doesn't really work in the grappling very often. She is fighting Joanne Wood, or JJ Calderwood, or Joanne Calderwood. She's married. Her name changed. But Joanne Wood is very well-rounded. She's big. She's a good size for the division. She uses her striking really well, and it's very versatile striking. She'll mix in everything as far as her strikes are concerned. She does mix in grappling as well. She took down Jessica Ai, Jennifer Maia. She took down Lee, Chikagi, and Lipsky. She's basically gotten takedowns in almost every one of her fights. Casey 3 times. Valerie Letourneau 3 times. She's very well-rounded. Very well-rounded. And people are going to say, well, listen, she's only 2-3 in her last 5. Okay, she lost to Jennifer Maia. Very good fighter. She was submitted. That happens. Lost to Lauren Murphy, who ended up fighting for the title. And that was a split decision that a lot of people think Joanne Calderwood won. And then she lost to Tyler Santos, who clubbed and subbed. And Tyler Santos is a freaking beast. So that happens. So I don't think people are giving Joanne Wood enough credit. $7,200. I will have her in my lineup. I do think she wins this fight. Alexa Grasso is very good, but she does not have the knockout power or submission game of Tyler Santos. She's not as physically imposing as Lauren Murphy. So what's she going to do? How's she going to win? She going to outvolume Joanne Wood? Very possible. Very possible. But at 36 years old, the amount of fights, I mean, look at this resume. The amount of fights that she's had at the level that she's fought, I think she veteran savvies her way to a win here. $7,200, I will probably do it. Main event, this is so cut and dry. Curtis Blaydes should be in your lineup. Look at the points he puts up. So yes, Derek Lewis knocked him out. Sure, it's a heavyweight fight. Chris Daukaus could knock him out as well. I just don't think so. 85 points with Rosenstruck. 173 with Volkov. That's 14 takedowns, which is absurd. 82 for Dos Santos. 120 for Shamil Abdukarimov. 105 against Willis. Starched against Ngannou. Smoked everybody else. I mean, the guy has only lost to the current champion and the guy with the most amount of knockouts in UFC history. He's going to wrestle his way to a win. It will be a dominant wrestling win. Chris Daukaus, 7,000 points. His only hope is a knockout. He is a jiu-jitsu black belt. I don't think that matters on the ground. He's not the first jiu-jitsu black belt that Curtis Blaydes would have wrestled and dominated from top. So I like Blaydes to dominate. I like him to get 1 million takedowns, and I like him to just put up solid points. $9,200. Frankly, I'm surprised he's not 94, 96. So I like Blaydes to win. He should be in your lineup. Daukaus, if you think he has that Hail Mary knockout, go for it. I don't see it. Guys, join our free DraftKings league. WeWantPicks.com/DraftKings. I even let you make your own contests in there.